What's up, everybody? Soul here with another sort of Convallaria video, and today we're going over our girl, the enchanting, the amazing, the diverse Yennifer of Vengerberg. And so she is here from the Witcher 3 collab, and she is pretty phenomenal. She can do a lot, and let's talk about it, starting with her trait. And so right here, looking at her trait, it is Yennifer of Vengerberg. And so right here we have increased to her magic attack. Let's open it up at 1 star because mine's 2 star. Increased magic attack 5%. When having magic boost, the magic attack is additionally increased by 10%. She gains an additional skill of magic surge, and after using 2 stacks of magic exhaustion at the end of the turn. So that means she cannot get magic surge every single turn. That magic exhaustion is literally just going to prevent her from getting that utility back. And then at the start of the battle, she gains 1 stack of magic exhaustion. Very nice, just meaning she can't use that magical surge first turn. So up at 2 stars, that increases to magic attack 10%, and then when she has that magic boost, it of course is she gains that additional 10% still. And then she gains an additional skill of magic surge, blah blah blah, 2 stacks of magic exhaustion, the same. And then yeah, at the start of the battle, she still has that 1 stack of magic exhaustion. However, at 3 stars, we see a little bit of a change. Her magic attack still boosted by 10%. However, that magic boost raises her magic attack by 20% instead of 10% now. And then she gains the additional skill of magic surge. It's still the same. However, she still gets the 2 stacks of magic exhaustion. She just doesn't start with magic exhaustion. Meaning at 3 stars, she can use magical surge first turn, turn 1. So that's a very decent break, but just that decent. And so that might be a big deal down the line, but yeah, it's not the biggest break point I've seen out of a 3-star unit. And then coming here at 4 stars, we see that our magic attack is now 15%. We still get the additional 20. We still get the 2 stacks of magic exhaustion after she uses magical surge. However, after using the magical skill, blah blah blah, magic surge, the next non-magical empowered skill costs 1 less energy and has its cooldown reduced by 1. That's pretty great. So it seems like 4 stars is the stronger breakpoint of the 2. And then of course 5 stars, like every character, that's where things go ham, and that's when they're at their best. And so what we see here is that her magic attack is still boosted by 15%. However, when she has magic boost, the magic attack now is raised to 30% instead of 20, so that's a significant increase, and it's a big deal because magic surge is what she plays around. It's big. And then of course now she gains that magical surge still, but now she only has magic exhaustion 1 stack after she uses that magical surge, meaning she can basically use this every other turn now. And then after using a skill or using magical surge, the next non-magical empowered skill is still reduced 1 energy and 1 cooldown cost. So this trait is really strong overall because the amount she's getting out of those boosted skills. You know, she's a lot like Karis. The difference is that she's not relying on her allies. It's a big difference between Karis and her, right? But what I'm saying is at 5 stars, you aren't getting as much. I should say, you know, it's nice that she can use this every other turn now. But it's not as big as what you would expect out of a 5-star trait. And so her 5-star trait doesn't seem like it's that phenomenal. If you plan on using her all the time and you really, really want her, yeah, go for 5 stars, of course. That you're getting to use that magical surge every other turn is a big deal, and it really helps her kit. It doesn't seem like a lot overall. And then of course 4 stars is probably where I'd suggest you to stop, but 5 stars of course is where she's best at. That magical surge is what she plays around, so yeah, 5 stars is a big deal. So I digress. Moving on. Let's talk about her ranks, skills, and abilities. And so we have to of course start with her innate skill, which is erosion. 1 energy cost, no cooldown, single target attack, does 85% damage and inflicts 2 random level 2 debuffs on the target for 2 turns. We've seen this on other characters, nothing wrong with it, it's straightforward, it's meh, it's not bad, it is what it is. Single target, nah. 85% damage, nah. Random debuffs, nah. Unless you're trying to do something niche, this is all just fair to middling. That's it. It's not great. And then looking here at rank 1, of course, this is the most lackluster rank out of all of them. Over here on the Dominion side of things, you have Corruption. At the end of the turn, she inflicts 2 random level 1 attribute debuffs on 1 random enemy within 3 tiles of the character, lasting for 2 turns. This is nothing wrong with this. It's decent, but it's just that. It's decent at best. Nothing fantastic. Apparently my cat disagrees with me right there. And then over here on the left is Yennifer's Heal. 1 energy cost, no cooldown. Heals the target for 100% magic attack and dispels 1 debuff. It's pretty big, honestly, for a heal at 1 energy cost. And then it has an auxiliary passive, where at the end of the turn, if the skill is not used, it heals an ally with the lowest HP percentage within 3 tiles of the character by 40% magic attack. This is a pretty great healing spell. And so that's what I would suggest you to pick at rank 1, in my opinion. There's nothing wrong going over here and grabbing Corruption if that's what you'd rather, but just this Yennifer heal is actually pretty decent and pretty good if you want to use Yennifer as a healer, which is totally viable. She can do a job as a healer. Moving up here at rank 3, you have 2 choices as always. Over here on the Shadow side, you got Embrace of Shadows, 3 energy cost, no cooldown. And so you select a target tile and deal 40% AoE damage to all enemies in 2 tiles, inflict 1 random level 2 debuff. Seems pretty solid right there all on its own. And it's a decent little attack. And then of course it heals allies within range by 60% of her magic attack and grants them damage up 3. And then immunity to frosty and burn tiles. So that's really good. Just right there. Damage 3 is pretty phenomenal. We absolutely love that. And then when having magic boost, it switches the skill to Shadow Veil of Fate. And so what that Shadow Veil of Fate is basically now you're doing 60% AoE damage to those enemies instead of 40%. Goodness. And then you're now dealing damage to enemies within 5 tiles of the character, inflicting 2 random level 2 debuffs, and then also damage down 2 on top of that. Gotta love it. And then of course, moving on, heals allies within range by 60%. That's no different. Dispels 2 debuffs now, which is really nice, and then grants them 2 random level 2 buffs on top of that damage 3 and immunity to frost and burning tiles. So this is pretty nice if you're using Yennifer and for healing at all, which is totally viable. Very, very nice right here. This is fantastic. That is the beauty of Yennifer. She's highly versatile, has a lot of utility. She can do a lot of different jobs. It's fantastic. Over here on the other side is Elemental Control, and that gives you 3 different abilities. Of course, you know, these abilities all get enhanced by Magical Boost, which is that magical empowerment, but regardless, or I should say it becomes 1 different ability when it's magically boosted to be more accurate. But anyways, Ball Lightning is one of the choices because it is a selector. You get to choose between Ball Lightning, Pyrokinesis, and Hail. And so Ball Lightning is a single target attack, but hits for 170% damage, which is phenomenal. It's a really good amount of damage. And then Pyrokinesis, which selects 1 location within a cross-shaped range. And then, of course, it deals 120% fire AoE damage to all enemies on a horizontal row for 5 tiles, and then turns them into burning tiles. This is phenomenal. Absolutely love this too. And then, of course, Hail, which deals 120% ice AoE damage to all enemies within a 2-tile radius of the target. Can't beat that. Also phenomenal. And then when you magically boost this ability, they all come together for Elemental Storm. And so this is a 180% AoE that hits those targets, but of course, as it hits more targets, it loses power, and so that damage multiplier is decreased by 15% up to 3 times, which makes a total of 45%, which will mean that this will hit for 135% when it hits more enemies. But regardless of that, before attacking, your attack is increased by 15% and your crit is increased by 50%. And it additionally inflicts vulnerable 3 on the targets within 2 tiles of the center. And then, yeah, after attacking, it inflicts 1 stack of ignition on top of all of that. And then, yeah, on targets within skill range and turns it into frosty tiles for 2 turns. So there's so many things happening within this elemental storm. It's pretty phenomenal, and this is what I'd suggest you to pick up at rank 3. However, if you got the Castalia and you want Yennifer to have more utility and not just be a straight damage dealer, which I don't think she is, by the way, this is a fantastic choice in Embrace of Shadows. I don't think Yennifer is a straight damage dealer. She can be played that way, but she's got too much to offer to limit her in that way. At rank 5, you have her reaction, which is Protection of Darkness. When hit by an active attack, damage is increased by 8%. Of course, for every debuff they have on them, that damage mitigation is increased by an additional 10% up to 30%, making, a total of 38%. So pretty phenomenal. When you're rolling those debuffs and you're playing that way, if you got her on an Iria team, you're rolling out debuffs, blah, blah, blah. She can do this and fit in that team, which is very nice and fun. Over here is Evasive Shift, and so this is what I'd suggest you to pick on the Dominion side, and that's her reaction ability reduces damage taken by 10% flat. Magical damage taken is reduced by an additional 30%. And then before taking enemies active single target attack, so understand it's limited to single target, and from the front or side, she performs a preempt. I always love preempts, definitely very solid. And then it interrupts the target's action. Whoa. Deals 50% magical damage and inflicts 2 random level 2 debuffs. Then teleports to the closest ally within 2 to 6 tiles. After the effect triggers, she enters a 2-turn cooldown. That is absolutely massive. This is a fantastic reaction ability, and this is what I definitely suggest you to pick up for her. Moving right along, up here at rank 7, this is a tough one. Over here on the Shadow side, you have Charming Illusion. And so this gives a 2 energy cost, 3-turn cooldown, magical damage, summon an illusion on the target tile for 2 turns, and makes the illusion inflict Bewitch on enemies within 2 tiles for 1 turn. And so Bewitch, before we continue that, is a debuff, control / bound type debuff, which is pretty great. It forces the enemies to move towards the target. Moreover, we can see right here, enemies within 2 turns, blah, 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 2 tiles for 1 turn, then deals 80% magical damage to all enemies within range and inflicts vulnerable 3. That is phenomenal. It gets better, of course, with magic boost, but in a pretty big way, in that it becomes instant Charming Illusion, which, as the name implies, is an instant ability. Absolutely phenomenal. And that's pretty much the gist of it. Nothing else really changes other than that it becomes an instant. So very, very nice. Of course, it's inflicting that vulnerable 3 still for 2 turns. But yeah, which is already pretty massive within itself. But man, that instant bewitching effect, whoa. Great synergy with some of these other characters, obviously from the Witcher 3 collab, who depend on those bound debuffs. This is pretty big. Hard not to suggest this to be the item you pick up. However, the other spell is equally huge, so this is a absolute must Castalia grab with that Charming Illusion or Portal. Either way, rank 7, you have to have both these skills. And at rank 7 on the right, Dominion is Portal. Select a target and teleport it to any empty tile within 6 tiles of that target. When cast on allies, it grants them damage 3 and speed 2 for 2 turns. When cast on an enemy, it deals 100% magical damage and inflicts stunned for 1 turn. That is absolutely massive too within itself. After teleportation is performed, Pursuit on all enemies within 2 tiles of the target, dealing AoE damage equal to 50% magical attack, inflicting vulnerable 3 for 2 turns. Holy guacamole, that is massive. It gets better with magical boost, which is instant portal. As named, it becomes an instant. And so this is something you can use instantly, obviously. And yeah, that's pretty nutty, in my opinion. Like, that's crazy. But that's what it does. And so with magic boost, this is an instant. You cast, you buff, or you stun and or do damage and inflict vulnerable 3. Absolutely massive ability. Oh, this is too good to pass up. Really tough choice at rank 7. If you don't have Castalia, highly suggest you use Castalia. Please make sure you get both these abilities. Up here at rank 9, you now have her basic attacks, which on the left is Dispelling Strike, 80% magical damage, dispels 2 debuffs. We've seen this 100 times, nothing wrong with it, very solid, great stuff. And then on the right is Charging Attack, 80% magical damage. Of course, it increases the skill damage of your next skill by 15%. For me, that's what I chose to go with. I have options both of these, but I prefer Charged Strike more often than not. Of course, there's going to be scenarios where Dispelling Strike does better. But yeah, you choose which one you want. It's kind of 50-50. It's up to you what you prefer. And then up here at rank 11, you have, of course, on the Dominion side, Yennefer's Mockery, which is a passive, increases her damage by 30%, and additionally increases her damage by 30% against targets with Bound. Of course, you're getting that flat 3% attack out of this. Very solid. Nothing wrong with this. It's a very good choice. Over here on the left with Shadow is Tissaya's Teachings, which also gives you a 3% attack. I would say that this is, you can go either way on these two abilities, but I'm going to tell you Yennefer's Mockery has more longevity in my opinion. Tissaya's Teachings, while it's not bad, you may want to utilize it and if you get Yennefer up and high at 5 stars, but when she gets to 5 stars, Tissaya's Teachings feels like more of a luxury and not necessary. As you already get this in her trait. And so for me, this is not the better choice. You're better off picking Yennefer's Mockery. Regardless, passive, casting non-magical empowerment skills reduces all class cooldown skills by 1 turn and restores 1 energy. Can be triggered 1 time per round. So very decent, very solid, very good for Yennefer at low star level, but only decent for her at higher star levels, 5-star level. Yeah, so Tissaya's Teaching, easily passable, but does a decent job up until Yennefer is higher star level. Or if you're in a team where she's getting solid support and energy and all that, this is really unnecessary. You know, it is what it is. It can be a benefit. Don't get me wrong. It just isn't an essential ability. So you can feel very comfortable getting Yennefer's Mockery, which you will be using to deal some damage and get more out of her. I mean, that's a pretty massive amount, 60% damage. Potentially, yeah, on a passive, that's pretty phenomenal. So, and then of course up here at her rank 13, you have Blessing of Divine Shield or magic defense increased by 10%, and then magical damage taken reduced by 10%. We've seen this on other characters, nothing wrong with this. Very solid stuff. And then her unique, which is Magic Insight, of course, is it increases her magic. When having magic boost, her damage increased by 5% and healing effects increased by 10%. Doesn't seem all that great. As you can see, it is going to utilize this resource right here, the Badge of Hope. And then level 2, which will utilize the other resource, Badge of Founding, will increase her magic boost damage by 10% and her healing by 20%, which is pretty good. That's where I have her at right now. And then of course at level 3, when she's having magic boost, increase her damage by 15%, her healing by 30%, and when not using magic boost, increases her damage by 8%, healing by 15%. Very, very solid. Very, very good. Great ability. So she's always getting something out of this. Arguably, you're getting more value out of her level 3 than when she is rank 5, but regardless, it's what you want on her. It's worth your investment. It's right in their kit. It perfectly works with her and just makes her all that much more powerful. So make sure you get it. With that said, let's talk about the builds. And so first up, we're going to have just General Trickery. That's what I'm going to call this build, General Trickery. And so we're utilizing the Charged Attack, Evasive Shift, Portal, Charming Illusion, Elemental Control. Of course, we've got her unique ability to see that on all the builds. And then in this build, I absolutely love to utilize Nirvana. For me, Nirvana does better than anything else as far as the damage calcs. I've run the test, I've done the numbers. My 4-star Nirvana and even my 3-star Nirvana, which they have really high magic attacks regardless, do really, really good. Better than everything else, and not by a small margin. However, Diffusing Prism does a really good job too, and came in second easily. Okay, this is a fantastic option for the free-to-play player that doesn't have a stockade of Nirvanas. So this is definitely very solid, does a really good job. You're not far behind Nirvana. This is easily better if you only have a 1-star Nirvana, because Nirvana's damage comes off of the ignition. And the other benefit of Nirvana is, of course, it creates the scorched tiles and this, that, and the third. But the big thing is that ignition. The higher star value the Nirvana, the higher chance of you inflicting that ignition. If you have a 1-star Nirvana, you're better off with the Diffusing Prism, especially if your Diffusing Prism is a 4-star, 5-star. Run it all day long. Very, very good stuff. Now, her signature item does a decent job. And let's say you pick it up and you're really happy with it and you want to utilize it, more power to you. But this is more for overall play, more well-rounded builds, so I would not suggest this if you're trying to do damage or if you're not utilizing those healing effects in with the damage. That's the big one. So if you're focused on damage, like in this build, I'm debuffing and I'm dotting the enemies and creating terrain effects, and of course getting that vulnerable, but doing damage. A lot of trickery in this build, that's why it's called general trickery. But regardless, I'm not healing, so I don't get anything out of her signature in that way, because Nirvana does a better job overall in the test. So Nirvana number 1, Prism number 2. If you're not, if you're not a whale or a dolphin like me, a dolphin, and you have the Nirvana, make sure you grab that Prism and Diffusing Prism. And then, yeah, moving on to trinkets. So I test my characters without a team and then with a team, and I look for continuity. And so bear that in mind. I have to suggest the Origin Hourglass for its overall performance in all scenarios. Very good damage, very good outputs. Absolutely loved it overall. Very, very solid stuff. And in fact, I have the wrong Origin Hourglass on her right now. But regardless, this is what I'd prefer big time on her. Let's go ahead and switch that up and put that on the right one. So what I want on her is that Origin Hourglass, and I want that wand and sword resonance for that bonus to attack and defense, to keep her mobile, keep her active and moving. With that said, though, the Origin Hourglass, and why I like it and prefer it, is because it has the best utility overall, in my opinion. Of course, a lot of people love Shield of Justice. A lot of characters are starved for the Shield of Justice, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you have her on a team where she can actively get support and shielding, physical shielding, mind you, then this is a phenomenal item where you'll always get a decent attack and defense boost. But in testing and taking damage, it's not always easy to keep that shield up, and so that's where that shield falls off. If you don't have a physical shield, if you don't have a way to reliably get shielding, which Yennifer is not doing on her own, then you're not getting the benefit. And so our Origin Hourglass comes in way better, in my opinion, at that point, and that's why I prefer it. If you're building around physical shields, and you have a way to put that on Yennifer all the time, by all means, run your Shield of Justice. There's nothing wrong with that, and it easily can do better, by a small margin, but it can do better. It's up to you. So with that said, Origin Hourglass is my suggestion. If you're going for something a little bit different, you want to do more damage, there's nothing wrong with throwing on that Blood Luxite Amulet. However, that Origin Hourglass is my preference and what I'd prefer to have on her as a trinket. Like I said, that Sword and Wand resonance. And then for the Terror Whisper, Dream of the Magician, absolutely doing a job. Love it. You're doing lots of damage in this build. Of course, you're teleporting, you are bewitching, and you've got that illusion, and then you've of course got your elemental spells or the elemental storm. So all those things have AoE effects in them, and so you want to absolutely try to utilize that, do as much damage as possible, and you're getting a nice little boost to damage regardless. Dream of the Magician, best hands down in my opinion on this build, I should say. Now let's have a look at her healing and damage build. And so on this, we're now running, of course, that charged attack is my preference, evasive shift, We've got the elemental control now in first slot. Embrace of Shadows is what we've thrown in for the heals. And then, of course, Tisea's Teaching, because she's low star level. At higher star level, you may prefer to have Yennifer's Heal, or more utility with like Portal or Bewitch. That's really up to you. But at low star level, I prefer to have Tisea's Teaching in there to help her keep moving and going with her high energy costs. Both these abilities have 3, but regardless, moving on. This is where things change for me. We're now healing and doing damage, so we have more diversity in our play, and so that's where I prefer Obsidian Star to come in and do a job. Especially as it gets higher level, it gets better. And so at 1 star, it's decent. Increases magic damage by 8%, healing by 6%, and then before using magical empowerment, she gains Obsidian Star 1, which is, of course, increases that 8% magic damage and 6% healing. So absolutely great, fantastic stuff. However, at 5 star, which you can go up through the ranks and the stars, this all gets better, of course, and at 16% 5 star and 12% healing. And then at Obsidian Star 4, which is the same things again. Regardless, you're also getting the use of after skills. You're targeting an ally, it dispels 1 debuff, and if you're targeting an enemy, it dispels 1 buff. You get an active dispel on it now. Pretty phenomenal stuff, in my opinion, and it does a really good job. But still, this signature item is all about healing and dealing damage, being diverse. And so I think it does a better job with this build if you've got healing in your kit. If you don't have healing in your kit, I don't think that this is the better option. I think you're way better off going with Nirvana, Prism, something different. It's up to you. But this is a great choice if you are trying to utilize that healing and do damage at the same time. That's just me. If you don't have healing in your kit, do not run her signature weapon. If you don't plan on using her for any healing, don't use the signature weapon. With that said, same as last time, Origin Hourglass, my preferred trinket. Now, this is a more supportive build where you're doing some healing, so there's nothing wrong with jumping down here and going with like Old Scrolls of August, switching it up. But Origin Hourglass is what I found myself to enjoy more consistently. And then, of course, for the Resonance, now I want that wand and cup because I want to get that engraving resonance back as soon as possible. I want to refund that energy and so on. You're not having to really worry about cooldowns at all, but what I want is that energy refund, and so that's what I prefer on her in this build, in my opinion. And then, of course, Dream of the Magician still doing a very solid job. Absolutely love it because you're running damage on both those abilities still, and so it's going to increase and do more. However, if you're primarily worried about healing, then of course switch it out. Get yourself that Mercy of the High Priestess and get your heal on and do your thing. Another one that really does a good job, in my opinion, of course, is that Chorus of Fortune. Absolutely love Chorus of Fortune. Gives you a little bit extra energy, buffs, AoE damage, you name it. But yeah, it's up to you. Play it your way. Dream of Magician is what I found myself to enjoy in these 2 builds. And then for the final build, which is the big damage build or boss build, we are now running, of course, that Charge Strike still, that Evasive Shift still, of course, Elemental Control, because that is where most of her attacks are. And now we've got Tisea's Teaching. This is for low star level. Not to say that again. At higher star level, you might want to replace that and pick up, say, Portal or even Charming Illusion to get that vulnerability off. You choose which one you want, whatever works best for your scenario. Maybe you even want to roll in a heal because that's what your team demands. But regardless, for me, I do vulnerability if you want to go for big damage on this. And I'd probably go with Charming Illusion just because it inflict that damage. But it's up to you. But yeah, this is Tisea's Teaching for low star level. And then, of course, Yennifer's Mockery, which, of course, increases that damage by an obscene amount. Absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely love it. This is a must-have if you want to do the most damage with her possible. And then moving up to the weapon, Nirvana, highest damage. That's what the numbers came out very consistently as, and there's no denying it. So this is your best in slot. And then Origin Hourglass, solid job. Remember, if you can provide the shielding, Shield of Justice will do a great job. Regardless, Origin Hourglass is what's more consistent. and does something better more often without support. So bear that in mind. And then of course, Bloodlux and Amulet, very solid choice, can do a lot of really good things. And then yeah, if there's something else you want to throw in there for more damage, that's on you, that's up to you, do what you want to do. Origin Hourglass is my suggestion. Sword and Wand is also my suggested resonance on this, and that is you stay mobile, you get the boost, more attacks, you name it. You want the wand, it's going to allow for more magic attack. I absolutely love having the sword and the pentacle together, because then when you're unharmed you get an attack boost period dot and a defense boost period dot. However, the pentacle doesn't allow for as much magic attack, and so it's not as good usually, so take that for what it's worth. And then moving over to the Terror Whisperer, you guessed it, you knew it, Dream of the Magician, absolutely phenomenal. All of her attacks, bar one, are AoE attacks, and so this is what's going to do the most for you, probably the most consistently. Of course, if you're just going to try to utilize her ability to hit with that single target attack, Ball of Lightning, over and over again, that's a strategy. There's nothing wrong with that. Then Dream of the Magician goes out the window, and you want to pick up your Verdict of Justice, or even, you know, Hierophant's Law. But Dream of the Magician, very, very great for all of her AoE. That's what I'm going to suggest you to utilize and work with in this build, because yeah, all AoE. So with that said, let's take a look at her in battle. And so Yennifer does a fantastic job in battle, but I felt she doesn't do the job alone like say that Trish or Geralt does. She needs a team to play in and around, because she's a diverse character with a lot of utility. And that's where she really shines. And so she's in this team where we have Ciri, who goes in and engages and gets right back. That's her strength. Yennifer goes over, creates a decoy, bewitches those two, and then don't forget they're vulnerable too. They got those wonderful little hearts to show that they're bewitched. And then of course we're going to use Geralt to shield and defend our units, but also do a massive amount of damage. And there you see it right there. That is the illusion doing its job, and fantastic effect. Shaq Lulu, a ton of fun, doing a great job as well. Geralt set up the shield, big AoE hits, taking advantage of those vulnerabilities. And then we teleport up, hit everybody with old Triss, doing some pretty solid damage, getting some ice terrain down. And yeah, moving on. Yennifer, like I said, she's too well-rounded not to utilize her in a team. That is where she shines, in my opinion. She's not a straightforward, straight-up damage dealer. She does a lot more. Big damage from her right there. Not enough to kill the enemies, unfortunately. Great ice tiles created. And yeah. Moving forward, Shaq Lulu, gonna finish him off real quick. Here comes Geralt with that Igni instant, and then big AoE hit. Make sure we finish her off. Clearing the way with Triss. We didn't get the Rhythm, Ice, and Fire off there, but that's the way it is sometimes. You'd rather hit rather than just proc abilities. So Ciri comes over, does some decent damage, gets stuff out of trouble. Yennifer with a simple smack finishes that boy off. And yeah, we're moving on into the attack and moving forward. Geralt comes over, sets up the shield, hits the barrel, creating the tile effects. And we're just kind of waiting for the enemy to start making some moves and come at us out of the little hidey holes. Here they come. Ciri comes over, using her mobility, teleporting over, and then we get out. That is what she's beautiful for. Get the teleport roll in there. There you see it. We teleported that boy over there to take some hits, and he got knocked back. It's a lot of fun. I don't really care about that unit. That's why we used him on the teleport. Here comes Shaq Lulu. She dashes in. AoE infection. Dashes back out. Geralt. Boom. Ignis. Really strong. Really good stuff. Triss. Decent stuff. Taking advantage of that Rhythm, Ice, and Fire. And then here comes the enemy.
Any last words?
Geralt shield procs in that Quinn. And yeah, we teleport Geralt in there. Ciri dashes in, does some damage, dashes out. Yennifer comes over. Big boost, create an illusion. And that guy's just bewitched. Doesn't do anything. Saving Shaq Lulu potentially.
Come on, come closer.
Geralt with big AoE hit, but doesn't do a lot of damage there. These guys are mega tough. Teleport over with Triss. Just get a hit off to make sure we're keeping active and rolling. I'm going to create that fire terrain. Geralt dodges that first attack, takes a big hit, Quid's broken. Of course, you see the side effect. Now, Garrett's in a little bit of trouble. We want to make sure we take care of Geralt. So there goes the decoy. Not to any great effect there at that point.
Yield and save me some time.
Get a little march command going.
I'll wait here. Come, time's of the
Here we
essence.
come take care of this group. Another decoy. Absolutely love it. Yennifer's utility is pretty phenomenal.
Appreciate it.
Come over to save Geralt and help him out. He's in tough stuff. These guys are really tough. Shaq Lulu doing what she does. Dash in, AoE infection, dashes over, and then walks away. We set up with a big Quinn and ending Geralt's turn.
Be careful.
Triss comes over, ignites. Butterfly doing her thing. Ciri taking a hit. We're not fussed. And then, yeah, like I said, that guy. Who cares?
Careful, or you'll taste my blade.
The dash over with Ciri.
There's fight in me yet. Stand down.
Double dash from
Willing
Ciri.
to accept
Decent
defeat
stuff.
now? Come, time's
Here
of
comes
the essence.
Yennefer. We get the
You've got
boost.
the wrong sorceress.
Teleport over to hit. And then the hit again with that illusion behind them. I absolutely love that illusion. I use the snot out of it. It's a ton of fun. Vulnerable 3. How can you not? AoE. How can you not? Bound. Control debuff. How can you not?
Any last
Big
words?
AoE hit from Geralt, ending it all off. Thanks to the setup from Yennefer. So, as I illustrated, for me, that is Yennefer. That is how she shines. She is a diverse utility character. In that build, in that play, we were using our general trickery build, and it was to great effect, in my opinion. This Charming Illusion is one of the most fun spells in the game right now, with so much utility. It's crazy. Of course, that changes slightly in boss fights, but it's still so good. It's crazy. Portal is also so good, and having both of these together, it just feels like it is too good to be true for one unit, but yet here it is. Usually these kind of abilities you find on a unit, and it gives that unit like unbelievable utility, and we have 2 of those spells on one unit here, which is pretty bonkers. And then her damage dealing is a choice out of 3 really good choices. That is bonkers. So this character is, like I said, bonkers. Now that we've said bonkers multiple times, let's take a look at her ratings. And so as you can see, divvying all of her utility, her stats, her abilities, blah, and giving them a numerical value per our formula. Make sure you go check that out if you haven't already. She comes in with a 0 in physical damage, a 5 in tanking, a 4.5 in healing, an 11.5 in magic damage, a 22 in buffs, a 13 in debuffs, and a 16.5 in utility, giving her an overall rating of 72.5. This is a great character. I might want to say it again. Bonkers. So this is someone you can feel very confident in pulling for. And she has 2 quote-unquote game-breaking abilities that you absolutely want to have. This is somebody you want. You want her all day long, every day, and the ratings show it. They back it up. She is, I think this puts her like 3rd in the strongest characters in the game as far as ratings go. I think it's 3rd or 4th, but either way, she's still top 10 easily, top 5 even easily. And so she is absolutely insane, which of course Geralt is number 1 right now according to these ratings and the value system. So make sure you check it out. With that said, pull for her. Don't miss out. Go get her. Do it. If you have the gems and you're not sure, you're torn, you're thinking about it, get her. You will regret not having these abilities. Unless there's something around the corner that's going to replace these things, you absolutely want them. Portal within itself has so much utility. Damage 3, speed 2, that moves somebody and then also inflicts vulnerable 3. That's insane. That is so much. And then it can be an instant. Oh, that's just busted. And then of course Charming Illusion. Such a great ability. AoE, damage, vulnerable 3, bound, debuff, that takes away the opponent's, basically takes away their actions. You know, boom. You can't scoff at that. You really just cannot scoff at that. That is absolutely bonkers too. go get these characters. Go get these characters. This character in particular, Geralt too, but all of these Witcher 3 characters are phenomenal is what I'm trying to say when I say go get these characters. But Yennifer, pull on her now while you can. Absolutely great. Whew. With that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Are you utilizing Yennifer? Yennifer? Do you like her? Do you dislike her? Am I flawed or mistaken on anything? Have I missed anything? Tell me all about it in the comments. I always do my best to respond to everybody and get back to you. So yeah. Also, huge shout out and thank you to my soldiers. You guys and gals came through on this one in a big way. I had to dig into the pockets to make sure we got Yennifer and got across the line. I'm like almost 300 pulls deep in The Witcher 3 right now. I've definitely had to hit the bank on that. And so, soldiers, y'all are the ones that came through and made that happen in a big way. Otherwise, it would have been something, especially Christmas time, that I didn't think I would be able to do. So this guide is out because of you. Thank you so much. If you are interested in supporting the channel, make sure you check out the links down below where our Patreon is, as well as our Discord where we talk all things sort of Convallaria. And yeah, guys, if you made it this far, please give me a like and a subscribe. I really appreciate it. Until next time, everyone, enjoy your gameplay and good luck in your adventures. Bye.